My next challenge is going to be the challenge of all challenges for me, intermittent fasting. Hey, what's shaking bacon? My name is Bruno Panucci. I hope you're doing well. So instead of putting an ad in the middle of my video, I'm asking that you like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate that. So to the topic at hand, my history with intermittent fasting is kind of unique. I did intermittent fasting, probably started at around 2016. The one thing I found interesting about it was I was eating once a day and I obsessed about my next meal all the time. Now I wasn't doing zero carb or carnivore, but I was obsessed with my next meal. And I thought, okay, this intermittent fasting thing's interesting. I'm not putting on any weight or losing weight. And I was going towards calorically dense food, not nutritionally dense food. And I thought, this is interesting. All right. So that's how my body's naturally responding. So I was going to cake and ice cream and pizza, things I loved, and I wasn't putting on any weight. I thought that was kind of neat, but I was always obsessed with my next meal time. And that wasn't good. I was starting to get obsessed with my food intake. Eventually, within a couple of years, I started doing longer fasts because a friend of mine was doing long-term fasting and he was telling me how amazing he felt both physically and mentally. So I thought that's going to be neat because it was around the 3-day mark. He said he noticed that everything they said about it was true. And I tried it and I loved it. I felt great. And it was easy because I was incorporating it with a carnivore diet. The problem was my refeeding windows were way too intense and I felt horrible every time I went back to food. So I was getting to the point where I was doing 2, 3, 4 days of intermittent fasting, but I would feel horrible after I'd have that first meal, usually at the end of the day. And I would go home, sleep. The next day I would wake up and I felt like I wasn't even doing carnivore. My joints were stiff. I didn't feel good. It felt like I wasn't even doing a carnivore diet. And I was always cold. I was very cold. The nice thing about that is, at least in the middle of the summer, you feel good because while everyone else is feeling 33 plus degrees in temperature, you feel like it's a nice 24. It's because I was always cold and my sleep suffered. So those are things I needed to be a little more aware of. But the main reason why I stopped was I eventually got kidney stones not long after I did a carnivore diet. I started just losing weight and it was creating a backup of uric acid in my kidneys because I have a history of gout. Problem with that was the uric acid always gets flushed out and prioritized before the ketones. I had all this backing up and I got these horrible kidney stones. It was about 2 or 3 months of torture and I hope to never go through that again. I've been on allopurinol since then and I've whittled down my medication dosage quite a bit. I was on a really strong dosage of allopurinol and that has its own side effects. I was taking like 800 milligrams a day, and that was only keeping my gout at bay. I eventually switched to a carnivore diet consistently, and I started taking berberine to manage that. And either way, I haven't had any trouble with gout in the last 3 years since I made that transition with berberine, which allowed me to do the carnivore diet easily. There was no more of an uphill battle trying to start a carnivore diet and fighting through gout when I had to work every single day. Now going carnivore has corrected most of my health problems. I've lost a significant amount of weight. My blood pressure is good. My heart rate's good. My A1C is good. My waistline is down. My cholesterol is better. My LDL is better. My HDL is better. My triglycerides are phenomenal. But the biggest thing I still have to work on is my fasting insulin. Now here's how insulin works. You eat a meal, and then your blood sugar goes up, and then your insulin goes up to counteract that blood sugar and to bring it back down. So both go up and both go down. Now, my problem is with fasting insulin and just insulin in general is my insulin goes up to manage that blood sugar, and my blood sugar is always great when I do a carnivore diet. That's another thing that's been corrected quite quickly on a carnivore diet. But what happens is my insulin goes down like a jet plane landing, really, really slow like this. It's supposed to go down on a steeper decline. So I've been dealing with that in lots of different ways. I've been trying to have multiple small meals. I've been going high fat and I've been watching my electrolytes, but I haven't always been doing all those things at once. Usually any 2 of those things. I always noticed with electrolytes, whenever I start or go off electrolyte powders or supplements of any kind or in pill form, I get horrible leg cramps. And I find once I've adjusted to being on them or being off of them, I don't deal with any leg cramps. So I always thought, why bother staying on it? But I never incorporated that with intermittent fasting before. So fasting had both a good and negative effect on my body. It really strained my thyroid and it aggravated my gout. Now, I haven't had gout problems in 3 years, so I'm at the point where I think I'm ready to try it again because my biggest problem I have right now, the main thing I'm trying to tackle is fasting insulin. My insulin is chronically high and I've tried to combat it in lots of different ways, both through diet and exercise. I made an impact at one point and it lowered, but it was still high, but it lowered dramatically, probably by about 1/3. Now, the problem is it went right back up eventually. And I was like, okay, my body just adapted to that. So I clearly have some insulin issues. The best way to manage insulin issues, and I said this through lots of my videos, is intermittent fasting. I've always said I like to do it. I like the way I feel on it for the most part, but it doesn't work for me because of my history of hypothyroidism and gout. Well, to help manage my hypothyroidism, I'm going to make sure to get iodine, Lugol's iodine. I already have that. I'm prepared for that. My gout hasn't seemed to be an issue in a while, so hopefully that won't be an issue. I'm going to go back on my allopurinol at 300 milligrams just to make sure I'm not dealing with too much uric acid issues. And also, I'm going to start taking an electrolyte powder. I'm probably going to go with snake juice just because out of the ones I've researched, that one seems easiest to make. I can make that myself. It'll save me a lot of money for having to buy anything. And also it has a good balance of potassium to sodium. And I'm going to incorporate a little bit of, and I mean a very little bit of borax into it. And I'm going to use high quality baking soda. That's one way to help neutralize uric acid. That's something I was doing back when I had gout problems a long time ago. My uric acid is in normal levels now. One of the problems people often have with gout is a history of metabolic syndrome, or actually having metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is not an issue for me anymore. So now I think, you know what? Now that it's been 3 years, my body seems to have hit this plateau, both in health as well as managing my pathologies. Maybe I'm going to try this intermittent fasting again. I think I'm going to start maybe on the weekend or next week, and I'm going to start working my way back up to 3-day fasts. Now, last time I did that, I did it really easily. Boy, when you do intermittent fasting on a carnivore diet, for me, it's a heck of a lot easier than when you're doing it with carbohydrates in your diet, because all you think about is your next meal, because your sugar's all over the place, your blood sugar. So we're going to try and keep that steady with the carnivore diet, which is an easy no-brainer for me. And I'm going to do refeeding very gently. Then I'm going to go back into my fasts. I'm going to eventually work up to 3-day fasts, and I'm going to see how that goes. I'm going to try and get regular blood work so I can monitor my fasting insulin as well as my uric acid levels and any other health problems that my doctor might want to look at. The other thing I'm going to do to help keep my body warm is I'm going to start doing weight-bearing exercises. Now, I go on and off weight-bearing exercises. I'm doing, as some of you might know, I'm doing some time on all fours, on my hands and feet, moving around. So that's one form of exercise I'm going to be getting every day, and I'm increasing each day by 30 seconds. That information on that is in my shorts feed, and I'm going to make a whole video on what I'm doing and why I'm doing that. And the most important thing is I'm going to touch base at the end of each week and reassess and see if it's worth doing another week of this. So those are the things I'm going to do to try and manage my cold issues. I'm also going to do some hydrotherapy to try and manage my cold issues. That might be some cold showers. That might be some hot showers. I mean, really hot or hot baths, just to help stimulate my body and brown fat cells, as well as just my metabolism. My 3 best courses in college when I went through to be a massage therapist was I got a 99% in my nutrition, 100% in my remedial exercises class. The next course that I got a 98% in was my hydrotherapy course. And I learned castor oil packs. I learned how to use hot and cold to manipulate the body. So I'll be incorporating this to help just sleep better, because there's nothing worse than when I fast and I get really little sleep. That's also another problem I always had fasting, was very little sleep. I was always cold and I was always tired. So if I sleep better, and if I at least get 6 or 7 hours doing these fasts, then I can't really complain about that if my energy is good throughout the day. This is my plan. This is what I'm going to go forward with. I might stop at any given point, because like all the little biohacking I've tried to do over the years, this is something just like any other one. If it doesn't go well and I feel like I need to tweak it or stop, I will stop. Especially because I don't want to get kidney stones again. That was the worst. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Leave your thoughts on this topic in the comment section below. I'm sure I'm going to get lots of awesome advice from you guys. You guys have been great, and I really appreciate you. Thanks a lot, and take care.